and welcome to the Yeerky Boys. May the Kandrona shine and strengthen you. My name is Will.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are
The Yeerky Boys.
Was that okay? Good? Remember last time when we heard back when it wasn't okay ever? And now it's okay all the time.
Yeah, maybe we should run some of those clips back.
Yeah, I think our listeners could do with a few more clips.
Well, we got a lot of people loved those clips.
I'm sure they did.
But we have to pave the way forward. Because what are we talking about this week?
This week we are paving the way forward. We are making our way into some of the Animorphs adaptations, the direct book adaptations. These are the audiobooks that we listened to this week.
Holy crap, Lois. Two people say holy crap. Peter from Family Guy and the dad from Everybody Loves Raymond. Those are the two holy crap people.
What about strong bad, kinda?
It's not
necessarily holy crap, but I feel like he does. I mean, he's gotta sometimes.
The audiobooks for Animorphs, these were released between January 2020 and April of 2024. Now, were you aware of this, that these books were coming out as we were doing our show? The tail end of them were brand new.
I think I saw maybe like K. Applegate posting about like an audiobook or two getting finished, but it didn't really occur to me that it was just overlapping our show. Like that it was just the full thing was being produced. I guess I just wasn't thinking about it. It is wild.
Yeah, because I mean, do you think that it feels? I mean, even with the graphic novels, maybe you feel differently, but to me, it feels like, oh, Animorphs is finished. Animorphs is old news. Yeah. It's all completed. Like, there's no new Animorphs. But that's not really true. In the last 2 years, or even more than that, the last 5 years, between the comic books and the audiobooks, there's been almost like monthly Animorphs content, just coming out, technically.
Crazy. Yeah, I should have been following that shit.
Yeah, you'd think, as the host of an Animorphs podcast, that might fall under your purview.
It might, but we had other more important things to do.
Well, I'll tell you what does fall under your purview.
What does?
An email this week.
The sharing.
Didn't like that. You think you went too far with it. Who do you think you are? Ariana Grande? Know your place.
Well, I'll do even more next week. I'll try to improve them.
I'm going to auto-tune it for you.
Thank you.
This email comes in from... Any guesses?
Any guesses?
It rhymes with... Heathen.
I wonder who it could be.
It's Steven.
Wow.
And it's, folks,
old pal.
Don't worry. I promise you don't need to be concerned. It is a long one.
Oh, goody.
Now, 2 weeks ago, of course, last week we had a big retrospective episode. People liked it. But before that, we did our episode about what we thought about what the Animorphs movies should be like and the show. And, this has generated a lot of discussion, and probably a lot of people have thoughts about this. They maybe haven't had time to get to it yet. So I have a feeling this might not be the last email we get on this subject. They're going to be rolling in until probably the end of the show. But here's another one of those. Steven writes, "Hey, Yeerky Boys. I've been a few episodes behind for a while now, as I just had a hard time getting through the last few episodes of the TV show. Don't think that's your fault. So much as it is that I was getting pretty tired of the show, and clearly you were as well. Nothing justifies last week's episode, though. Anyway, I largely agree with how you do an Animorphs TV show. And I thought your discussions of how you'd do a movie trilogy were interesting as well, even if it's not what I'd want for the series. While I think that Will is right that you couldn't make a weird father movie, I do think that just for that section of the book, that could make its way into an anthology TV series. When you guys read the Ellimist Chronicles, John even pointed out the similarity to the Love, Death, and Robots episode Beyond the Aquila Rift. See, that's why we were going to do that on the Patreon. Remember?
Is it? Okay.
Must be.
Must be. Gotta be.
Anyway, Stephen continues. Just strap in, okay? He's a lot of thoughts about the movie trilogy. All right, let's get through this. If I was skeptical about a movie trilogy working, I was even more skeptical about the idea of a single standalone movie. But after hearing Nick's thoughts last week, I think he unintentionally hit on a few ideas for how it could be done. Firstly, as he mentioned, you have Axe on the ship with Elfangor, getting him into the story right away. I also think that putting a specific time limit on when the Andalites will arrive, rather than just having it be they'll get here when the series is over, makes it easier to end the movie on a hopeful note. This will work even better if you end the movie with the Animorphs destroying the Kandrona and delaying the Yeerk invasion. The Yeerks still have the Yeerk pool, they still have Visser 3, they still have portable Kandronas. They're set back but not out, but hopefully by this one action, the Animorphs have bought enough time for the Andalites to get there. In terms of what actually happens in the movie, you will have to make some major changes. Marco, Rachel, and Cassie would have to be put on the back burner. Jake finds out Tom is a controller early in the movie, and his main motivation is freeing Tom, something he actually succeeds at. Axe wants to keep Andalite secrets, but at the end of Act 2, he breaks and reveals the whole Ciro's kindness situation, as well as telling them that the Andalite fleet is a year away, rather than being right around the corner. Tobias gets trapped as a bird in the act of saving Axe in the Yeerk pool, which is what prompts Axe's change of heart. That's screenwriting, folks. I said that, not Steven. I sort of like the idea that Tobias does go down the back to before route of getting sucked into the sharing, and even ends up a controller, but somehow finds out that he can still morph, and the Yeerk can't control him while he's in morph. Fuck. So his decision to trap himself in Morph isn't just about escaping his abusive home life, but is to permanently contain the Yeerk, to stop it from spilling their secrets, and to be free as an animal even if he couldn't be as a human. At this point, either the Yeerk goes away or we get a line from Tobias that's like, I can still hear him in my head, with the implication he'll be able to hear the Yeerk's voice forever. I'm not married to this idea. And obviously it has the potential to introduce some plot holes, but I also think that when you're trying to be economical with your character arcs, you have to make concessions. The story ends with them destroying the Kandrona at the EGS tower, setting the Yeerk invasion back. Jake successfully frees Tom, and if you really want to go for it, maybe Jake dies in the process, leading Tom to join the Animorphs in his stead. The alien invasion has been publicly exposed, but the Animorphs worry that Yeerk cover-ups and general public apathy will prevent a real military response. Since the Yeerks won't just let Tom go, the Animorphs go on the run, intending to recruit more people for a resistance. The movie ends with the Animorphs starting to tell their story to a group of disabled kids, bookending it with the line, "My name is Jake," or if Jake dies, "My name is Tom." Now that I'm writing all of this out, I'm worried I might have just written the ending of The Host again. Let's just break here. That's most of the email. But what do we think about this version of? I don't know that it's clear to me where. Is this all one movie? He's just talking about this is one movie right now.
This sounds like this is one movie.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think about this as the Animorphs movie?
Well, one thing I love to do when I'm being, making sacrifices in order to be economical with my character arcs is I like to add like 3 or 4 more character arcs on top of the ones that we already had, just to be economical about it.
Well, you have to be economical. You have to make concessions. This entire thing about Tobias having a Yeerk, that is insane. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But I mean, sure. I don't like that. What? Like, I think that's why I thought, is that movie 2? Maybe like that sounds like a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not opposed to a lot of these ideas. I do think that, as you are seem to be getting at here, this is way too much for one movie.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
It's hard to say. It's hard to imagine it. I suppose you
Mhm.
could fit this all into one movie. It just depends on how you dole everything out. But it just reading it all up front. I mean, if you just read the description of the invasion book, you might go, "That's too much for one movie."
Mhm, mhm.
To be fair. So maybe it's just too much for one movie in general. But it is fascinating hearing everyone's different ideas about how you would condense these into three or even just one film. And
Mhm.
I think in this case, I understand it seems like he's centering it around the Jake Tom relationship. And I do think you kind of have to, like, for me, I looked at the Marco and his mom relationship as the main thing. But I feel like you got to pick one of those two. Like there has to be something that links the Animorphs to the Yeerk threat beyond just saving the world. There has to be a personal stake in it. And so I think you have to pick one of those two as the main thing. Or you could do both, maybe, if you have more movies. But that part makes sense to me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. What does kind of grab me here, though, is the idea of an anthology series.
Mm.
Be it whatever that one you referenced was, or something like the Animatrix or whatever, where you just literally
Ooh.
are doing like, okay, here's like a series of 10-minute shorts or something, right? I think there's some real potential there to get just the absolutely bonkers storylines that you want to see, but you just cannot under any circumstances do.
That's how you do it. Yeah, you do the movie trilogy and then you have an animatrix to accompany it.
Hmm, hmm.
Or, like when Zack Snyder's Watchmen, they had
Hmm.
a bonus just hear me out.
Okay, I'm bearing with you.
They had a bonus. I mean, I never even watched it. It probably sucks, but they had like an animated version of the pirate thing or whatever the fuck is in Watchmen. You know what I'm talking about? There's like a I don't even remember anymore. In the Watchmen comic, there's a pirate there's a story within the story. Like in the universe, there's another fictional thing. I think
Hmm.
that's what it
I
is.
don't
And
really
like
remember this.
well, and obviously it's not in the movie, but then eventually I don't know who actually I don't think Zack Snyder directed it, but somebody with the studio, like it's an official thing, made like a half hour, 45-minute animated story, and then there's like a cut where that's part of the movie. I don't know. You could do if we lived in the era where DVDs were still a thing that people cared about with special features, it would be easy to do stuff like this.
Hmm.
But we're not in that era anymore. I have been thinking even more about these movies and listening to the audiobooks that we'll get to soon kind of triggered a thought in my head that I was so committed to the trilogy idea. And then I started to think, you know what? I feel like maybe you could do better with 6 or 7 movies. And in fact, I even thought, what if you did 7 movies? And the first 6 movies, each one is a POV from one of the characters. And then movie 7 is like the beginning and you switch narrators or something. Would that be cool?
I'm getting more and more off it the more we get into just like long running cinematic universe and off
But that's
of
not a
like
universe.
self-contained.
7 movies is not a universe. Like the Harry Potter movies, not including Fantastic Beasts or whatever the fuck. There's like 7 of them. There's 8 actually. They tell a story, but you don't think of that as being like a universe,
Yeah, but it's
It's
just too like by the time you're done, it's just like, all right, that's too many. You know? It's too many.
well,
It's
I
too
you may
fucking
think
many.
that, but the world at large doesn't think that. Those movies
Yeah,
have
but
a
this
fan
is
base.
my preferred adaptation. It's gonna be too
Well,
many.
you think 7 movies is too many? Come
For
on.
like one, yeah, like listen, no, yeah, I think it is too many for one contained narrative. Yeah,
Think
I do.
there's so many Star Trek movies. What about Mission Impossible? That's all one contained narrative.
I mean, first of all, they kind of aren't.
I don't know what you mean.
they I mean, I guess the Harry Potter's kind of standalone, but like I don't know. At a certain point, it is kind of like, yeah, these are fun, and I'll go watch them. But like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just not. It's not something that I'm like super hype about there being 7 of. Like
I
even
don't
with
know.
something like Mission Impossible, it's like, okay, new one comes out. That's cool. I'm excited to see it because it'll be cool. But like, I don't know. am I sitting here like, "Oh, man, all 7." Eh,
Yeah,
I
I
don't give a
am.
shit.
I do. I fucking love all 7.
Yeah, but you're also, like, a TV guy.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How do you feel about The Fast and the Motherfucking Furious?
I mean, similarly, I'm happy every time a new one comes out. I'm like, "Hell yeah, give me some more family," but, like, I don't know, like, I'm just kind of like, "Oh, hey, cool, another one," you know? I'm not sitting out here like, I wanna see the Fast and the Furious arc. I wanna pay I don't know.
What's the cutoff for you? How many, like, is 4 movies too many? Like, how many is too many where it
I mean,
becomes a
no, I have
problem?
to do it based on vibes. Nobody makes 4 movies is the problem. There's, like, trilogies, and then there's, like, indefinites. And then I guess there's Harry Potter.
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, what if you had it as like 2 sets of 3? You said we're making 2 trilogies, and you kind of build them around sort of somehow you wrap up the arcs of the Animorphs into 2 trilogies. So there's sort of it feels even though there's a continuation, it maybe can feel like the third one has sort of a resolution, and then you have like the next trilogy that's can a little bit have its own vibe. You know what I mean?
It could work, but they have to be, like, contained enough that you're not thinking about one. You know what I mean? I was thinking about Star Wars, and then I was like, this is maybe not a great example because the other trilogies don't. Yeah, but
But similar to what I'm trying to suggest.
it is, but, like, if you were to make A New Hope and then say, "Okay, cool, this is popular, we're gonna turn this into a trilogy." Actually, no, we're gonna turn this into 9 fucking movies. It just wouldn't have been like, I know George Lucas was, like, thinking shit like that, but, like, no, it was good because they were making fucking 3 of them, and then 20 years later, we're gonna try more, you know?
We can't be talking about Star Wars this early in
We
the
really
show.
can't. It's your
Anyway,
fault.
no, it's fine if I do it. So we both agree that basically that Steven's idea is bad, though.
Yeah, sure, I don't even remember anymore. Where are we?
I don't know. He wanted a movie. Tom is in it. Fine. Cool. Good job, Steven. Tom's in the movie. You really thought it through. If people don't listen to the show, they're like, man, they're so mean to their listeners.
I know, right?
That's sort of our thing. We're kind of like the shock jocks of the Animorph world.
Mm.
We're gonna roast you if you're
We'll
right
play
into
some
us.
some sound effects here.
Here's something else Steven said that I'll rip into
Hmm.
him for. As for a director, I think Robert Rodriguez could do a good job. And I'm not just saying that because of The Faculty. I'm thinking about Alita Battle Angel, which is a standalone adaptation of a much larger work that ends on a tragic note with its main plot almost completely unresolved, yet still works really well. Plus, he has a penchant for weird visual flair that makes me think that his vision of morphing could be pretty compelling. Keep up the good work, Steven. That's nice. He thinks we do good work. Robert Rodriguez, what do you think? Yay or nay?
Um, I don't know. Why not?
Okay, big nay from me.
Nay for
Get
you.
that-
Okay.
no,
See,
fuck off.
I'm not opposed to it, but it seems like yeah, okay.
Robert Rodriguez 20 years ago?
Hmm.
Maybe. Robert Rodriguez now? No, I watched the Book of Boba Fett and I said, I'm done with Robert fucking Rodriguez. Fuck off. I
Fair
don't
enough.
trust this guy anymore. I actually do like Alita Battle Angel. It's one thing I'll agree with Steven on. I think that's a pretty fun movie. Underrated. I wish
I
I
liked
would
that
like
too.
them to make a sequel. But I think that's more due to the influence of James Cameron than it is to Robert Rodriguez, if I'm being honest with you. Um, Anyway, and it's like his visual flair, you know what his morphing would be in 2025 or whatever? It would just be some CG bullshit. How about Michael Bay? Just get him to morph like fucking Transformers with 1,000 little moving
Holy
parts.
shit! I want Michael Bay's Animorphs. Oh my god.
I mean, if you want Michael Bay's Animorphs, just watch Rise of the Beasts. I mean, he didn't even direct that one though, so never mind. But it's just Transformers. It's Transformers. That's what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'd get all kinds. We'd get like Visser 3, we get Hork-Bajir all over the place. I'd get my fill of Hork-Bajir and Taxons.
I
I'd
tell you
get
one thing,
yeah.
Rachel would be fucking hot.
Yeah, oh yeah, they'd all be aged up because Rachel would have to be hot as fuck. Same as Cassie. Jake and Marco would have those like big standing shots from below with the camera spinning around where like Marco says a quip or Jake says a badass one-liner.
Hell yeah.
Then they like turn into a tiger and a gorilla and they like leap out at some Hork-Bajir and the camera starts spinning around and you can't even tell what's happening. This rules.
All right, we'll greenlight it.
Okay.
It's in the works.
Done. It's done.
So far, based on everything we've heard, I do think that my trilogy plan is still the best one. I mean, I don't think I'm being biased. I think you would agree.
Yeah, I would agree. I liked that trilogy. But hey, listen. I worked on it with you,
Okay, fine. You get a producer credit.
Well, I just mean that in general, right? Like people, this is a general psychological thing. If you want somebody to like your idea, let them have like one point of input, because then they'll be like, now I love it. Now, oh yeah, that's great. That's how you do it.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing. Everybody has a different vision of how this would work. Again, the ultimate conclusion of this is that it probably just, it doesn't work. You do have to just do a lot of crazy things to it, which means that in the end, not everybody is not going to be happy. You have to compromise to fit this into a movie form.
I mean, at the end of the day, as long as the finished product is objectively good, artistically speaking, then I'll be happy.
Thanks, Stephen. You can email us with your thoughts about Animorphs movies or anything else at theyeerkyboys@gmail.com. And while you're typing things into your internet browser, why not go to patreon.com/theyeerkyboys. We're doing bonus episodes every week for $5 a month. We'd really appreciate it if you'd be on board. Now let's move on with the rest of the show.
Hooray! That was fun. That was a good time. I'm glad we wasted all that time because I don't know. Do you think what's your prediction on the length of this episode? You think we can do 3 hours?
Now, I know in the past when I've said this, it doesn't always bear out to be true, but I think this might be not our longest episode.
Yes. I will just say up front that normally I take notes for these things. I didn't really take many notes because due to circumstances beyond my control that were also largely entirely my fault, I couldn't really see for a lot of the week. So I did listen to a lot of these audiobooks, but I'm gonna be kind of winging it a little bit here.
I feel like you can't just say that without explaining yourself. People are really gonna be
Well, see, the thing is, I was doing something stupid. I was doing yard work out behind the fence line, and I was fucking around in the brush, and I wasn't wearing gloves, and there was like pollen everywhere, so I guess I like rubbed my eyes. And long story short, I got poison ivy all over my face, and it swelled up real bad, and I couldn't get my contacts into my eyes for several days. But I'm not all better now, but I'm better-ish now.
Folks,
I can see again.
He looked like a genuine circus freak.
I still
maybe you still do.
Yeah, I'm just not all swollen up to the point of like facially I just look kind of bad, I don't look like a monster. Now my arms and hands look a little monstrous, but
it looks like you're mid-morph.
Right.
You got trapped mid-morph into what? An elephant? A boar?
A pufferfish?
Yeah. It's not a pretty picture, but fortunately, like you said, we're doing the audiobook, so you were free to just lie down and use your stupid little ear holes.
That's right. So it didn't even really affect my ability to like do what I needed to do other than, note take.
I mean, I jotted down a few things that I wanted to bring up, but what are we like? What notes are you taking? We've read these books. We know what they are. We're not taking new notes on the books. Here's the deal, folks. These audiobooks exist. There's one for every single book, including the Megamorphs and the Chronicles. Strangely, from what I have looked into, it seems like they did the numbered entries first, and Chronicles and Megamorphs came at the end in terms of the order of the release of the audiobooks.
Oh, that's interesting. So, because when I first started listening, I was just listening through them in order. So, but you're telling me that when I put Megamorphs in between 7 and 8, I was doing it out of order technically, because release order it came out at the end.
Yeah, you were doing the machete cut.
Hmm.
So what? Now we did not listen to all 60 audiobooks.
No.
Is it actually? What is the actual number? I usually say 60. Is I know there's
It's
54 books.
it's pretty close, right?
There's 4 Megamorphs.
Yeah, I mean it's whatever 8 plus 54 is.
I
62.
don't think I can do that. Maybe someone will have to write in.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here's what I think maybe we did something similar, but I'm pretty sure you listened to more than I did. I listened to straight through.
Hmm.
I listened to the audiobook versions of books 1 through Megamorphs. Then I listened to a little maybe did I listen to all of the Alien? I listened to like a good amount of book 8, the Alien.
Hmm.
And the next book after that is book 9, The Secret, and I said, this is a good time to stop. I don't need to go through the whole series. That's ridiculous. And I really wanted to make sure that I heard a little bit of every different narrator in the series, and I was more curious about some later books. So I listened to not any of them in full. I listened to some of Andalite Chronicles, all the Chronicles books basically is what I then followed up with.
Okay.
I think you actually listened to like full Chronicles books though.
Sort of. So I listened 1 through 8, including Megamorph. So basically the same as you, except I finished the Alien.
Okay.
Because I was like, I'll listen through to them in order until I've gotten through one of each narrator. Um, then I skipped to the Andalite Chronicles, and I did listen to all of that. I listened to all of the Hork-Bajir Chronicles because I really wanted to hear it. And then at this point, it had been kind of a while, so I was like, I kind of want to hear the narrators again. So I listened to The Change, a Tobias book. I listened to The Warning, a Jake book. I listened to The Decision, my favorite Cassie book. I listened to The Discovery just because
What?
I was like, I want to hear some David arc. I listened to The
Oh my
Exposed so I
god.
could hear Rachel do the Drode. And then I listened to The Experiment, even though I don't like that book because I wanted to do Axon. I wanted to hear him do his Young and the Restless shtick. From there, I listened to small snippets of Visser and Elmas Chronicles just to get all of the narrators, and I listened to another snippet because I think there might be a narrator you skipped.
Oh, well. Yes, I didn't listen to that one.
I only listened to one chapter of that one.
You're, of course, referring to the Beaver book.
I am, of course, referring to Mark Bramhall, who voices Isaiah Fitzhenry in the Beaver book.
So, so you went way beyond. I wanted all the ones you mentioned were ones that I kind of bookmarked in my head of like I want to hear those books too. I want to
Mhm.
hear a David trilogy. I wanted to hear The Departure. You said The Decision. I don't know what the fuck. I wanted to hear, I don't know, but
Did I
I
say The
didn't.
Decision?
You did say The Decision. Did you mean The Departure?
Uh,
You
well,
said The
I listened to The
Decision,
Departure,
my
yes.
favorite
Yes, I
Cassie
listened to The
book.
Departure, yes.
Okay. I'm glad we can clear that up.
The
Which
Decision
one?
comes right before The Departure, I don't know.
Great. Great. I didn't. But I mean, I didn't have the excuse of looking like a deformed monster who couldn't move or see
Right.
and being able to just, listen to a million audiobooks. But that's good. That's good that, you're going to bring more of that expertise to the show today.
Uh-oh.
You better. You fucking better. So that's a lot of audiobooks. Each book is the standard books are around 3 hours to listen to. The Chronicles are what, more like 4 to 5, depending on which one you're looking at.
Yeah, yeah, I think the Andalite Chronicles is, like, 6.5 or something extremely long.
Was it? I thought for some reason Hork was longer than
I have
Andalite.
a little graphy graph here somewhere because I was interested. I don't know where I put it. Yeah, I was interested in how long these audiobooks were relative to our episode lengths. Yeah, okay, no, the
Mhm.
Hork-Bajir Chronicles is, maybe 5-ish hours, give or take.
I'm looking at it now. This says Hork-Bajir's 5.5.
Mhm.
Viscer's 4.5. Elamist is about 5. Andalite. Oh yeah, Andalite is the longest. That's 6 hours and 42 minutes. There you go. Now you know,
There you
folks.
go.
um, okay. Well, first of all, I want to know, what is your audiobook stance? Are you someone who listens to audiobooks regularly or in the past?
I mean, n no is the answer to that. I don't listen to audiobooks.
I don't listen to hip hop. Remember the South Park movie?
Hmm, that's pretty funny. I mean, I've got nothing against them. It's just not a thing I've ever really done.
I guess I do think people who listen to audiobooks are stupid.
Okay. Not
In fact,
unreasonable.
if you listen to any kind of just audio of people talking, you're functionally brain dead.
I mean, to be fair, your time is probably better spent listening to an audiobook than us.
Yeah. No, I do not do the audiobook thing. I never really have. Um I I'm not against other people listening to it, listening to them. But personally, I like I prefer the act of reading myself for a number of reasons. I like doing the voices in my own head. I like being able to read it at my own pace. And if I want, I can pause, I can reread a sentence, I can like think about something for a minute. I prefer to hear the voices and imagine the scenes how I want to imagine them without another voice dictating that for me. I just think that's a different kind of experience. That's not one that I'm really crazy about. And now, what I have found is that I don't mind an audiobook if it's for something I have already read before. So maybe I think this maybe has come up on the show, but Andy Serkis does a Lord of the Rings audiobook. I think maybe he has
Mhm.
one for like The Hobbit and Silmarillion too. I'm not sure. Um, and I have enjoyed listening to those, but it's part of it is because I don't feel the pressure to be taking it all in and paying attention to every detail. Then that's another aspect of it for me, is that when I listen to audio, my mind tends to wander more. And usually, if I'm doing something else, like if I'm going for a walk or if I'm playing a video game, which is more likely, or if I'm making dinner or whatever I'm doing that I can like have an audio thing that I'm listening to at the same time, I prefer to listen to a podcast because I don't care if my mind wanders or I hear a noise or I have to do something and I miss 20 seconds of the podcast. Whereas a book, I want to be locked in and really absorbing every detail of the story, the same way I would a movie or TV show. When I'm engaging with fictional media like that of any kind, I really just want to be immersed in it. And I don't know, unless you're like you and you're, you know, disabled somehow and you like can't see and you're all you can do is lie back in your bed and feel your horrible swollen face. There aren't any circumstances for me where I would want to just sit and listen to something. I guess if I'm driving somewhere, but again, I just prefer to listen to a podcast in that scenario.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's never, yeah.
I was trying to think like what are the circumstances in which I would listen to an audiobook, and I think the only answer to that is going to be like road trip, right? Because as you said, attention is a big part of it, right? Like with a regular book, you control your attention, right? I love this passage, so I'm going to really focus in on it and take my time with it. All right, I don't care about this. I'm going to skim through it. I'm starting to lose focus. Hold on, let me go back and reread that, or let me whatever. Whereas with an audiobook, it just kind of keeps going, and you're just kind of like, oh, I guess I missed that section, or oh, that section maybe didn't even feel as impactful as it felt to me when I read it, because when I read it I really like focused on it, whereas here it's like, oh, it's just same as any other passage. um and yeah, as you said, like I can't really, if I'm going to be focusing on it to the point where I'm not missing massive amounts of it, I need to have my full focus on it, which means I need to not be doing anything else unless it's on autopilot, so, like, driving maybe. Except the problem is that, if you're driving for 15 minutes at a time, you're not
Mhm.
really getting through a 3-hour audio, like, by the time you're through a 3-hour audiobook, so much time has gone past that you're like, "Oh, I just kind of lost my place every single time I had to start again." You know? Like, so if you're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go on a 15-hour drive," yeah, I think that that could be a great place for it, and I think there have been times in my life where I have listened to audiobooks because other people played them on road trips, but, like, outside of that, it's just not, like, a thing that I do. And that was something that I was noticing even here with my, swollen, stupid face and inability to do much of anything else, was just that,
Mhm.
like, yeah, but, like, what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna sit here for 3 hours and only pay attention to what I'm hearing? No, like, I'm gonna fiddle around and be like, "Oops, I missed part of it." You know?
Yeah, I did do a fair bit of, I've been playing Monster Hunter, the new Monster Hunter game,
Mhm.
and I'll just be hunting a monster, and then I had an Animorphs book on while I was doing that, you know? That was kind of my, or like I said, like getting dinner ready or whatever. You and I have the advantage of being, pieces of shit with no lives or loved ones.
Right.
So, for us, it's like, well, why wouldn't I just sit down and read a book in my leisure time? I do understand for some people, they're like, well, I have a fucking 2 hour commute, and they're like Cat, who has just works all day. Like how we have a cast of characters we can bring up now and then. And I need something in my ear holes throughout the day. Like I could see that scenario.
Yeah.
There's scenarios where maybe I would be converted to an audiobook guy,
Yeah, I
but
could
they're
see
not.
that. Like, if you have a menial job in which you don't need to do interaction, right? Like, you're not, it doesn't require your full focus, but you also aren't just like, because like when I've done that, it's been like, yeah, but I'm doing retail and shit, so like, even if it doesn't require my focus, I can't very well be listening to shit because people might talk to me. Um,
Ugh. Gross. So both of us are audiobook skeptics, it sounds like.
I mean, listen, I'm not necessarily a skeptic in the. I don't know what that means. I guess is I don't. I see why people might like them, and but it's just not a thing that's particularly for me necessarily.
Well, we're coming into this. I mean, I would hazard a guess as to say that this past couple of weeks might be the most audiobooks either of us has ever listened to.
That's probably true. Yes.
Right. So we're really being thrust into this world. And it is something that we're familiar with, very familiar with already.
Hmm.
Some might say we've spent hours discussing it. So I don't know. What was your general experience? Was it a positive one? Did you have fun? Did you enjoy? Or was it torture every minute of every book?
I mean, it wasn't. It was somewhere in between, right? That like there were some things that were enjoyable for me, and there were some things where I would just get like irritated at the way it was being read, or like that doesn't fit, or blah blah blah. Uh, yeah, and I could get more specific, but as a general overview, it was kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know that this is the best that these books could be read, but also I'm not an audiobook guy. I don't know. Could I do better?
Um,
Probably not.
well, no, you couldn't. Our listeners can attest to that. Me, I could probably do pretty good.
Hmm.
I have a great voice, people say. Oh, no, wait, it's a face, they say, for radio. Never mind. All right. Anyway, um,
Thanks.
well, you're welcome. Well, so okay, let's break it down
Yeah.
because each book, as we kind of alluded to, each POV has its own narrator, which is kind of cool. You know, they could have just gone ahead and said one person reads all these. They
Hmm.
didn't have to hire different actors, but they did. The main ones, we have McLeod Andrews as Jake. You may recall we mentioned McLeod on our Patreon because he appeared in the movie They Look Like People.
I don't
Do you
recall
recall?
that, but
You
that's pretty
don't
cool.
recall that? Man,
We
your brain really is deteriorating.
that we huh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember this at all.
It was a
I
whole
mean, I
thing
remember
when
that movie.
I looked up the actor and I looked at his IMDb and I went, "Holy shit, he's Jake. Oh my god." And we both like freaked out.
Oh, okay. I don't remember this.
Holy shit, dude, I'm worried about you. That was like 3 months ago.
It's just not the sort of thing I remember.
Jesus Christ. You don't remember being like McLeod. You were figuring out how you pronounce that and
Hmm. Not re no.
Jesus, dude. What
It's
the
just not the sort
fuck?
of information that I found valuable to remember.
This is I'm concerned.
I'm a
This
big
is
picture guy. Details
this
like
is
that, it's
crazy.
not that important to me.
I guarantee our patrons remember. In fact, I think somebody, oh yeah, because I believe it was Nick, I want to say, who recommended that movie to us. And in a follow up comment or email, he said, "Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't pick it for that reason. That's a crazy coincidence." I even remember that follow up.
Damn. Well, if you'd asked me like the week we did it, I probably would remember, but
Now I feel like I could just start making shit up and you'll believe me. We have Emily Ellett as Rachel. Now, most of these these actors who did these, mostly just, it seems to me, just do audiobooks.
Mhm.
So when you look at their kind of resumes, there aren't as many like, oh, wow, this person was on Boardwalk Empire or some shit. This seems to be kind of their thing, but I'll go over them briefly. Michael Crouch is Tobias. He is a big audiobook guy. He's done a lot of different things. Cece Aisha Johnson is Cassie. And Ramon Del Campo is Marco. He has been on some stuff. He's on The West Wing. He was in Triple X, State of the Union. And Adam Werner, that's with a V, not a W, is Axe. Obviously, I think we'll get to the Chronicles books. We'll kind of separate that out.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
So did you feel like there was any, between those actors, did you have preferences? Were there ones where you went, oh, well, A, in terms of how good they were just in general at reading an audiobook, and B, how well they lined up with your idea of what those characters should sound like?
Yeah, so there's almost two parts to this, right? Because there are certainly the assessment of these people as how they did reading their own book and being their character, but also every one of them is doing distinct voices for other
Yeah,
characters. So
right.
they all have their own imaginings of what the other character should sound like that are different from each other. And so I feel like, going through them, there are going to be points where I'm going to say, like, I really liked how this person imagined this other character. Even if that, or where you might say, like, oh, well, like Rachel's voice actress, how did she do Tobias? Well, I don't know if that is gonna work if she's reading for Tobias, but like it is, you know what I'm saying here? Do you get what I'm getting at?
It is a strange thing because you don't just have six different characters. You have six different actors doing more than six voices, because you've got
Mhm.
Visser 3, you've got
Right.
sometimes Elfangor, you've got their parents, you've got Tom, you've got all of
Joe
these,
Bob
Eric,
Finestra.
Joe Bob Finestra, Juan and Terry, everybody, the whole works. Melissa Chapman. um, and yeah, they all have their own interpretation of them, and it gets especially messy, I think, when you're doing a Megamorphs book and
Mhm.
you're hearing like Tobias, and then immediately you then hear Cassie's version of Tobias, and you're like, is that Tobias? That doesn't sound like who I just heard. It's a little weird. I have a lot of questions that there aren't answers to about how these books were recorded. I mean, I assume the answer to that question I'm about to ask is no. But like, did these actors hear any of the other actors before recording? Did they have any clue what Marco sounded like in his book before they did a Marco voice?
It does not
Did
come across that way to me.
Yeah, like was there any unification at all? Like, was there one director who oversaw this project? It's
How do you do audiobooks anyway? Like, is there a director? Like, do you have like you bring people into like professional recording studio and you have like overseers, or is it literally just like you get your equipment together and you just submit your recordings when you're happy with them and then somebody edits them or whatever? Like I have no idea how this works.
I have done a little research into this because
Okay.
I was curious about this too. I think in the past it was more like the former, and there
Hmm.
were studios you would go into. Nowadays, it's just, especially since COVID, everybody just has a recording studio in their home if they do this kind of thing professionally.
Yeah, I mean,
And
in the
so,
past, you're not going to have professional equipment at home.
right,
Is going to be
of
part of
course.
it.
So yeah, I believe it's mostly they do recordings. They'll do like a couple of hours of a day, and then they'll send it in, and an editor will edit it. And I think that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know, once they're cast after the hiring process, I don't know how much oversight there is. I don't know how much feedback they're getting of saying, "Oh, this voice, could you do it a little differently?" Especially because there's just so, even in a short book like Animorphs, there's just so much to
Hmm.
go through. Like, how much is it really worth it for these editors to go through and say, "Oh, this line delivery was a little flat." Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just it's
The
so
it definitely seems to me like getting back to the initial question that there was no sort of because you could still do it this way and have like an onboarding meeting, right? Where you say like, all right, you guys are all going to be recording books and you can record simultaneously. That's the great part, right? Like you can say like, okay,
Mm.
you six Animorphs all record your first book and then bam, we release books 1 through 8 or whatever. Well, that doesn't quite work, but you get what I'm saying, kind of here.
Mhm, mhm.
You just and um and so before you even begin that, you just bring everybody on and you say like, okay, let's go over the characters. Try. What's your Marco gonna sound like? What's your Marco gonna sound like? Let's try to get everybody kind of on the same page as to what Marco sounds like. And then you all do your own, you'll all do your own take on him, but like we'll all be envisioning the same guy. You could have done that. I don't get the sense that that was done.
No, it does just seem kind of hard to do that, even that.
Hmm.
Just and it might feel like for the actors, they might feel, they don't want to be, they're like, this is my audiobook. Like, I'm not, why
Mm,
should I try to match that person's interpretation of it? Like, that's not who I'm seeing.
interesting.
You're paying
I,
me to do my job, you know?
Interesting. Maybe this is because, I am imagining hurting grumpy, egotistical actors, but I'm not imagining saying, like, okay, Marco, do your Marco. Everybody else do that. I'm imagining, like, okay, everybody, let's have a fun session. Everybody, do a Marco. Do your three favorite Marcos you've been workshopping. And then you slowly say, like, okay, let's try to do a Marco like this Marco. Like
It's
you're
hard
working with
too
toddlers.
because, like, essentially, for whoever is doing the POV, that character is basically just their voice, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't think any of the actors are doing a take for their own book narrator.
Yeah, not really.
So then, at least not that to the sense. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I hear their real voices and I'd be like, "Whoa, it's totally different." But I don't get that sense. Maybe Cassie a little bit. I don't know. Um,
Maybe Jake too.
Maybe Axe.
Maybe all
Yeah,
of
maybe
them.
they all
No,
are.
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think they all are. But but that's also kind of tricky. It's like, well, are you trying to imitate? Because that just sounds like if I just heard the actor for Marco in these books, to me, I'm just like, that's just a guy. It's not
Mhm.
like he's doing a. It's not like a character in a cartoon where you might kind of do a voice, because I think that's another thing with an audiobook is people are listening to these for long periods of time. And I think there is, I don't know if this is a written rule or not, but it seems to me you don't want to go too crazy because people could just get annoyed by listening to it for long periods of time. And I think that holds true as well for sort
Mhm.
of the emotion of it, by which I mean s- some books I felt like, oh, this feels kind of flat. Like they're just kind of going through it, like, whereas if I were to try to read this, I might try to emote more and really like, oh, that character is coming out. Like in my head, I'm hearing it like it's a performance on a cartoon or a TV show or movie or whatever. Um, but I think A, maybe for your own voice to preserve, you don't want to do that. And B, just for the listener, I feel like people, when you're listening to a written book, you almost want it to be more even throughout without like too many big spikes or lulls in terms of the heights of it and the volume and things like that, because it's you want it to be more like the experience, like a little more neutral of how you would see words on a page in a sense. Does that make any sense now what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I do think there were a number. Here's the real thing is that um and again, this is why I kind of prefer reading is that every time they read a passage that is an important passage to me and they don't read it the way that I would read it, I kind of bristle a little, right? I'm like, that's not right. You should emphasize this bit or you should be reading it with this tone. And like you are right. Like I'm noticing that less on the passages that aren't important to me, but I like how do you know which passages are particularly important to
Tail
your
feathers grow back.
Exactly, exactly. Although there were a couple of points going through here where I was just like, "What? The way you read that is objectively incorrect, and this is your job. Re-record it, or like, what's wrong with you?" But that was just one or two nitpicky details. But again, that did bother me every time I heard it. Not the way that I thought it should be. It bothered me.
Here, I'll give my sort of overall rankings and thoughts on each actor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I do think by the time I got to Megamorphs, and I'm sure part of this is also, I mean, for most audiobooks, there's only one book and they only get one chance at it. This is like kind of a rare opportunity where by the end of the series, they might have really locked into the character in a way they didn't in the beginning, which is kind of interesting. I didn't experience that because I didn't listen to the end, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was thinking I should listen to the end, but I guess I listened to Megamorphs, so but I didn't. Yeah, huh? Okay.
But regardless, by the time I listened to Megamorphs, I do think all of the actors had grown on me to the point where I was like, I'm okay with all of them. I don't I kind of like them here and there. They sort of gel for me. I think this for the most part works. More specifically, for me, I think Emily Elliott, who was Rachel, was overall the strongest.
I
I
agree
thought
with
her
that.
Okay, I thought her voice. I thought she was the best at it. And I also just thought she sounded like how I thought Rachel should sound.
Hmm.
And she did a good job. I didn't get to some of her real angry moments. Maybe you got more of that with the solution or whatever David book you just listened to.
Well, I didn't
Um,
listen to the Rachel David book, unfortunately. I
oh
picked a
right,
Marco for that because I needed another
right.
Marco. I
But
listened to her do the Drode, and her Drode is quite good.
so that's good. Was it as good as my Drode?
Well, hard to say.
Hmm.
When did you do the Drode again? Though I thought the Drode sent in that submission himself.
Right. Well, I think I did an impression
Oh,
after the
okay.
fact. Anyway, remember when I read the fan fiction on the Patreon?
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember
That's when
that
I
now.
did it.
Yeah.
The Drode's day out or day off, I forget. Anyway, so I thought she was good at at getting those angry parts too. I thought Axe maybe was my second favorite, but it's hard to say because I also heard him a little bit less.
Mhm.
But I thought he did a pretty good job. In comparison to, I actually think all the other actors had bad axe voices. I didn't like the way they did Axe, which I'm not going to remember specifics, but at least one or two of them, it felt very like robotic and Mr. Spock kind of. I am Axe, and
Mhm.
maybe I've just been too. Maybe I'm Paolo pilled now, but
Mm.
I just hear him in my head as more of a like a slightly more fun, like less robotic character.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
hard to say because, like, in his human form, he is a little bit more, Paulo-esque, but he is kind of stiff in when he's being an Andalite, he is pretty stiff as a character in the books. But
mhm.
yeah, the axe voices of other voice actors did range anywhere from like, "Ah, yes, Prince Jake," like, kind of, like, trying to put on a warrior affect to, like, as you said, like, very, like, computer robot AI, "Yes, Prince Jake." I can't even do it. I can't do voices. What am I trying to do here?
You're doing great. Yeah, but did you think that Adam Verner? I thought Adam Verner's was pretty good. Was pretty solid though.
Yeah, I thought he was decent. Yeah, I think that there were a number of them that and his other characters were fine. I found him to be, like, mostly I didn't have much of an opinion. I was like, "Yeah, he's here. He's doing acts in the characters," right? Like, I didn't even think about him that much.
One thing I found strange with Axe is the his habit of repeating sounds,
Mhm,
which when I read it, I sort of think of it as him going like buns buns, like kind of maybe quickly or playfully. But I
mhm.
guess on the page, there's periods after each one of those. So sometimes they would just read it like hello, low, low. And it just sounded so much more awkward the way they were doing it. Like they weren't, again, like they weren't trying to perform it as much as they were trying to read it the way it was written on the page.
Yeah, I do find that to generally be an issue that I wish there were a little bit more performance, at least in the dialogue, right? The dialogue you can perform. It's freaking dialogue, right? If you're gonna put on a voice for the dialogue, you're gonna perform it. And there I don't it can be drawn out or it can be quick, but it should be playful.
But
Um
even the non-dialogue, it's like in this case, it is a character's thoughts. So that
mhm,
should also to some extent be them
that's true,
emoting.
yes.
Could be at least. And like sometimes they did, sometimes it was fine. I thought Tobias was decent. Uh Jake, I didn't really like at first. He sort of grew on me, but I thought he sounded maybe the stiffest of all of them. um
Yeah, Jake for me is kind of hit or miss. I think Jake as I did not like Jake as Jake, but I did like Jake as Tobias. Uh, I in fact, I even think that Jake's Jake would have been a better Tobias, than a Jake. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you may be right. Marco, I also grew on me, but I did at first listen to him and just think this just sounds like a 40-year-old. Like it didn't sound like Marco to me.
Yeah,
It
Marco
just
just sounded like he was just a guy. I
it
feel
sounded
like
like a news anchor. Yeah.
very few people got their Marcos particularly good. I do think Rachel had the best Marco. I think very few people had a Marco that sounded fun and playful. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah, who I feel like we think is the easiest character to get across. Like he's the most certainly in the beginning at least.
Hmm.
He's the most colorful and it's like a sarcastic kid. Like that's the easiest one to sort of nail, I think.
Hmm.
But I hate to say it, my least favorite of the bunch was Cassie. Now, I'm
That's
curious what
same for me as well.
okay. I was gonna say I'm curious to hear what you thought about her reading of the departure. Maybe it was better or worse, but she did it very. She just had a very "Hi, I'm Cassie." Like it sounded like a real Muppet Sesame Street character or
Interesting.
something. A very like it sounded to me very meek and very kind of like, "Oh, I'm just a little girl. I don't know." I
So
don't know. I didn't care
so
for
I
it.
I actually had that problem with every I don't think anybody did a Cassie
Mm.
that I liked. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that everybody interpreted Cassie as, like, very soft-spoken and meek,
Yes.
as you said,
Yeah.
and that's just not it's like Cassie is, like, very firm in her morals. She can be wishy-washy about certain things, but like at the end of the day, she's also shoving pills down geese throats. She's a farm girl. It's like
Other
this
places
is
too.
a girl who's going to speak authoritatively and have strength, and she's got to be able to do that. She just also is nice and non-confrontational about it. And I feel like a lot of people like it, or not a lot of people, but for the people reading these, that just wasn't a distinction they made. They were like, Cassie's the nice one, so she has to be so meek. I think that Cassie's reader, CC Aisha Johnson, I think that her general speaking sounded very like school teacher ish. In a sense, like it felt a
It
lot
sounded
more
like
like
she was reading a children's book to me.
yeah, it sounded like she was reading a children's book. She had a cadence like she was reading a children's book, which, to be fair, these are to some degree, but like the other readers were more just like, reading the text. There wasn't some sense of like, oh, there's like a thing I have to, and then the thing. Look at the picture. I don't know.
I also had a sense from her that maybe was present with other narrators too. I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I felt it was more pronounced in her books, where the way I would read a sentence, for instance, might be like, "Hello," Tobias said. And the
Hmm.
way that she would read it was, "Hello," Tobias said. Like there, it almost sounded like she maybe recorded the dialogue of the characters separately, and then they just slotted in a Tobias said that could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, she had a couple of issues, and they all, to some degree, to greater or lesser degree. It wasn't just her, but they all had some.
Uh,
There were moments with all of them where I was just like, I feel like this line is not how you read it in context. Like the next sentence or the sentence before changes how you read this. And you're kind of reading it as though it were in a vacuum. I had an example from Siski Aisha Johnson, which maybe isn't that fair to pick on her, um,
why not?
because they all did it to some degree. But for example, there's a point in the departure where Cassie's like, okay, we're out in the woods, right? And she doesn't know where she is, right? And it's like, okay, I don't know how far away civilization is. Uh, it could be it could be 1 mile, it could be 10 miles. But what worried me more was that I didn't know what direction to go, says CC Aisha Johnson. Now, this is incorrect. This is objectively incorrect because in English, right, in spoken English, if you are a non native speaker, I'll tell you now, we
Mhm.
accent words
Stephen.
to point out contrast or new information. So she's saying, yes, I didn't know the distance. But what was more worrying was that I didn't know the direction in order to contrast direction with distance, you see. You wouldn't accent the word no. That's incorrect. It's just objectively wrong. So why did you read it that way? Is it because you forgot the sentence you just read? Or is it because you're kind of doing a school teacher thing and you're like, I need to get the children to understand that this character is doing a thing so she doesn't know. I don't
Or
know.
maybe, you took a break and then came back and didn't look at what your last sentence was.
It bothered me. Every once in a while, these things would happen and it would bother me.
I do agree. That is something I notice as well. Like you said, with all pretty much all of them, not just her.
Mhm.
That there are definitely times when I went like, is that how you would say? Like, I guess it's fine. And the thing is, it's an audiobook, so it just keeps going. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm sitting there going, what the hell? Like, oh, you just kind of keep listening and you get the gist and it goes into your brain and it works. It's fine. But there were plenty of points where I said, I don't know that that's how I would read that. It's a bit
Yeah.
weird.
Actually, you know what? I'll give you another example.
Oh, great.
From McLeod Andrews. There's a point with Joe Bob
McLeod.
Finestra,
Mhm.
right? And he's Visser because he's Visser 3's twin. And he's like, oh, he's the greater and I'm the lesser. And he said, he gets all the promotions, blah blah blah. I only have what I can take. And then he clenches his fist on the word take. And I'm like, okay, so now that you've read the sentence where he clenches his fist on the word take, you want to go back and reread that sentence and maybe say, I only have what I can take, because that is how he said it. But no, he didn't go back and do that.
Yeah.
So there, I can
Yeah.
complain about somebody else too.
In their defense, I'll say two
Mhm.
things in this actor's defense. Number one, they're probably not getting paid that much.
Mm,
Like if they were getting paid to do retakes, I'm sure they'd be happy to. They're probably not. So, when you're doing who knows how many jobs they're working and how many different books they're recording, they might be doing like 3 different books in a week and they can't keep them straight. Uh, it's not entirely their fault. And then also going back to the issue of like us not liking those Cassie voices. Part of that, I'm sure, is it's difficult to make several different voices in one book that are all distinct,
mhm.
and it I do understand the inclination to just kind of latch on to some sort of attribute of a character and just go, how can I make sure you always know it's Cassie talking?
Right.
Like if she, like in real life, Cassie would just sound like a normal girl, but when you're a man doing 17 voices in a book, like how do you make sure that sounds distinct? Okay, one of them maybe has to be a little more meek sounding, and that's just what you do. It's
Right.
unfortunate, but like I don't blame them 100% for that.
And I think it's also worth noting that, you said these started in 2020, so,
Right.
2 decades after the series ended because, if this was like at the height of popularity and this was like a big major project, it's kind of like, yeah, you say you've got to make the Cassie voice distinct, but like, yeah, that's why you would spend time workshopping it, right? Like you would say like I'm going to spend some time before I do these books because I know we're going to sit down and do this big project for this massively popular series. Let's sit down and get
Mm,
all the voices straight and exactly how I want them so that they really fit the character, maybe bounce some ideas off. But with this, it's like, man, we are 2 decades out that you can't find these aren't in like Barnes and Noble. Like you're finding these in used bookstores or Amazon. Fucking like they're just sending this out and being like, "Hey, we're doing the Animorphs thing now because there's a market." McLeod Andrews do a book, and he's like, "Oh, cool, I'll do this. That sounds fun." And he's like,
right.
"All right, what's Cassie? That's Cassie." And now you're locked in for 60 some books.
Right. And similarly, from Scholastic's point of view, funding this, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like a miracle that these exist at all, to be honest.
Mhm.
I would love to I wish I knew the behind the scenes of who pitched these and why they made them. Man, because and maybe this is I don't know, I don't know, we're jumping all over the place, but that's fine. But the fact that, as you said, you cannot buy these books. There aren't even ebooks of these books. The only ebooks that exist are fan made,
Mhm.
as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that's
no,
true.
that is true. They are officially endorsed, but they are like free and fan made as far as I understand it.
So, right now in 2025, if you're just a normie on the street who says, "Oh, I remember Animorphs. I'd love to read that whole series." Your only legal option, or if you just search Amazon or Kindle, the only real option you have to purchase and enjoy those books is these audiobooks. Right now, these are the form that these books exist in the public sphere.
Well, you're buying them used secondhand at like, by the time you get to the end, $50 a fucking pop for some of the later ones. But yeah,
uh,
basically, if you're buying them directly from the publisher,
yeah,
it's these and well, one other set of things,
right.
which we'll get to.
But but it's like, what is the decision making on the part of Scholastic to say we should have audiobooks for these, but not ebooks? Why is this the only format they felt was worth doing? I would think it'd be the opposite. If anything, I'd be like, get them an ebook first and like, I guess audiobooks. Maybe they must have done some market research that said the people who want Animorphs want to listen to them more than they want to read them.
They looked at all the fucking Animorphs podcasts and they were like, Jesus Christ, we got to get in on some of that.
I guess it feels backwards to me. And it's just a wild thing to me that's like, this is Animorphs that exists right now. Say, like, you can't buy the TV show either. Like, this is the
Mhm.
only, this and the comics, as you alluded to, those are the only two actual Animorphs things that are in production, that are in circulation. Very weird. It's so weird. Is that not
Yeah,
weird?
it is weird. It is very strange. And that is also a point. Like, why not ebooks?
Yeah.
Like
Why?
the ebook, yeah, because that's got to be cheaper, right? Like,
Has to be.
how hard can it be to scan some books you have on file? They must. I mean, fucking, they probably even just have like the digital. Like, they must have the text of the book in there somewhere, right? Like, they could just get somebody to format that, uh, and run those off, like all of them, like within a week, easy, and just have them all available. So why didn't they do that? I mean, I guess the fan project already happened, and then they were like, "Eh, fuck it, we won't step on that," or
Maybe.
something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't
they got
know.
beat to the punch.
But I don't think they finished, or maybe there might be actually be multiple of them. There's at least one fan made Animorphs audiobook online
Mhm.
before these came out. But yeah, I don't know. I find it baffling. I can't believe that you can't just purchase an Animorphs book today, other than this. Anyway, but more specifically, back to like the actors and the books and the voices themselves. Um, we're I don't know about you. I don't know if you're truly as angry as you as you sound. I do have
I'm
issues
not
with
that
them.
angry. It's just it's one of these things, right? Where every time something like that happens, I'll get a little flare of anger, and then immediately it's like, okay, and now I'm back to just listening. It's no big deal. And if I'm gonna talk about it, then I'm gonna live in that one little flare, and I'm gonna sound super angry. And it's like, yeah, but like that lasted for all of a quarter second in reality.
Yeah, that's what this podcast is. We slow down time, so a thing that should take 5 minutes to discuss takes 2 hours.
That's right. A little time matrix action for you.
Yeah, I do think by and large these are a fine, if not good, way to enjoy these books. I'm like, I wouldn't want to do it as my first time, but that's me personally. I'm sure for many
Hmm.
people it would be completely fine to do that. Um, now, uh, I mean, what did you think about? I mean, another thing that's funny about all these Animorphs books is they all have the the sound effects and the onomatopoeias and such, and so the actors do have to go seer and stuff like that.
Choo choo! Bang bang bam!
My at one point, one of my cats did get genuinely frightened by Rachel doing an elephant sound. I was like, "Oh, sorry about that. Didn't know that was gonna come."
I actually
I was
do
loud.
think that CC Aisha Johnson might have had some of the best animal noises.
Well, she's in a stream. Makes sense.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a point in her favor.
There you go. Finally, the Yerky boys are propping up a woman of color. All right. So but that's a lot of fun. Another thing. Okay, here's what we need to talk about. I
Mhm,
think.
mhm.
Speaking of things that maybe irked us about how they were read in these books, a big part of this is pronunciations.
Yes.
Now, I do not know. As you said, I know that Kay Applegate endorsed these audiobooks, or at least by that I mean she mentioned when they were coming out.
Mhm.
I have no idea if she had any input or if they consulted her at all for them. It doesn't I don't think they did, because I saw a tweet where people were asking about the schedule and she said, "I don't know. I'll let you know when I do." So it kind of seemed like she was observing it from the outside as well.
Yeah, I mean, they might have consulted her and she was just like, "All right, cool, do it.
Right.
You're my new ghostwriter. Fucking, here's the outline. It's called the book." I'm busy with fucking Ivan.
So so there's many words in this series, and I don't know, maybe I'll just say a few and we can
Mhm,
discuss
mhm,
how
mhm,
we feel about them. I mean the first one that probably gets repeated the most throughout all of these books, and in fact is the basis of the title of our show, the Yeerks.
mhm.
Now sometimes in these books they say Yerk, I think. It kind of like, but I sometimes maybe they're kind of like saying it fast, or it depends. But for the most part, in this case, it does seem like there was some unification because it did seem like all of the actors pronounced everything the same way
For the most
for the
part. Yeah,
most
there were
part.
a couple differences, but it does seem like there were some things where it's just like, that does not feel natural enough to have happened unless they were all, like, given a pronunciation guide.
I have to assume. And
Mhm.
so they say Yerk, they really go hard on those double E's and they say Yerk.
Yes, which I think also occasionally happened on the TV show, but not always.
It was certainly, if it happened on the TV show, it was certainly minority of times or just
Mhm.
much subtler. This really threw me when I first started listening. Like immediately, it wasn't even like, oh, wait till we get to one of the weird words. It was like right away,
Mhm.
yerk every time, like really leaning into it. I mean, I don't know. What do you? I don't know.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
mean,
think?
I'm gonna stick with the pronunciations I've always used, but yeah, I'm not as big a fan of yerk, and I think that I feel like that's also just not right from KA's like Q&A interviews where she gave her own little pronunciation guides, which I didn't agree with fully. I think it also there, but I could be wrong on that point.
I mean, the fact that obviously the TV show is not exactly canon,
Mhm.
but that is our real only other source of hearing these words out loud. So to some extent, yeah, I'm inclined to think Yerkes is correct. I also think from a character perspective, it is less believable to me that all these kids would immediately learn about this alien race and start saying Yerk all the time, because that's not a sound in the English language that you usually make with
Mhm.
two e's and an r after it like that.
Yerk.
So I feel like even if that were genuinely how you were supposed to pronounce it, they would still just be saying yerk as a matter of
Yeah.
convenience, you know?
Yeah, like you have the aliens all say yerk, but the kids just say yerk.
Right. But then it's like, well, where do you draw the line between how much are you being true to the character versus just this is the book and you're supposed to make sure the book is
Yeah.
said correctly.
Yeah, we're not fucking J.R.R. Tolkien here where we're interested in the like dialect differences between all the different characters.
Right. So that's a big one that it almost, I don't know, I don't want to say that it grew on me, but it stopped bothering me after a while. And also again, like sometimes I think at least maybe Rachel more so would start to say yerk more. But I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just eventually you just fall into that because it's
Mhm.
easier.
Yeah.
Okay, the next big one to me, which I feel like I maybe either we've talked about this or maybe it came up on Reddit or something. Of course, we say Elfangor,
Mhm.
and in the audiobooks they like to say Elfingor.
Yes, Elfingor is pretty normal among all of them. And fucking I think the first time I heard it was Visser 3 saying it. Uh if I'm not mistaken. And so the first time McLeod Andrews is over here putting on this snarling Visser 3 voice, being like, ah, Elfangor. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
I When you take it in a vacuum, it does
Hmm.
sound more Tolkien-y. It like you could convince me that maybe that was how you're supposed to say this one.
I don't
It,
know
you
that
know,
I want it to sound specifically Tolkien-y though. You
yeah,
know?
and that may not. I'm not saying that's even why but it just. I'm like, it's not like. I don't look at it and go, what are you talking about? Of course it's Elfangor. Like, I can see both pronunciations in that word.
Mhm.
I don't even know why, to be honest. I defaulted to Elfangor. It just seemed right. I guess maybe they did say that way on the show too.
I think they did on the show. I mean, I say it that way. Um, I think it's something about that
Fang.
ANG in there where just like if it was Elfangor, I I don't know, I wouldn't expect that to be an A, right? I'd expect that to be like an E or an I or
Hmm.
U.
Hmm.
Like the A right before the NG implies to me that I'm supposed to be getting that ang sound in there.
Maybe if there was an E at the end of the word, Elfangor might feel look more natural. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe.
But yeah, so that's a weird one. I mean, along those same lines, we have, and I think again, this is one I feel like I've seen debate about online. Instead of aximile, they say aximile.
Yes, which is also what they say in the
They
TV
said in the
show.
show.
But I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm an Aximile guy.
aximile, aximile. I definitely like aximile, aximile vanilli.
Reasonable Aximile thereof.
Yeah, kind of a weird one. But here's one that I don't know if even I wonder if you picked up on this. Or it was very subtle, but I feel
Hmm.
like I heard it. But another one, instead of Candrona, I feel like they really said Kendrona, almost more of a almost like a K-E-N instead of a K-A-N. Kendrona. Did you did you
I
feel
feel like
that?
that's not that far off from how I would say it. Like, cause yeah, I
Hmm.
tend to pronounce the A more in like a Candrona, but
I feel like we
like
say may the Candrona shine and strengthen you.
yeah, but it's close enough that you can easily just slur that into a schwa if you're saying it enough.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's a subtler one. But
Yeah.
it still took me aback. How about this one? Nothlit.
Yeah, I feel like that didn't come up. It's actually kind of weird how little they say that word.
I remember when we did the podcast in the beginning, you were like, "Oh, you're gonna find out about Nothlets," and then I didn't for like 10 books.
Yeah, because they fucking didn't actually say it.
But yeah, I think the first time I maybe heard it was in Axe's first book. But that one is just wrong.
Yeah, that is wrong. That's incorrect.
Nothlit. Get the fuck out of here.
No flit.
Um, of course, they do say Hork-Bajir with a hard J. I know that won't sway you at all.
Yeah, but here's the other thing, and I feel like this is inconsistent. I think some of them said Hork-Bajir, and some of them said Hork-Bajir.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that.
There was definitely it might have only been aliens. It might have been like when aliens say Hork-Bajir, they say Hork-Bajir because they all do these weird alien voices. But that was definitely a thing that happened once or twice, and I was like, "That's weird."
Hork-Bajir.
Hork.
You know that you probably didn't pick up on this either, but you also won the battle of the Osprey. They all say Osprey.
Right, that's correct.
Now, I looked this up. Both pronunciations are legitimate.
Hmm,
It was a regional
only sort of.
thing. I think Osprey sounds stupid. I think Osprey is better, but that's fine. Okay, here's the last. I don't know if you had any. I have one more that really bothered me,
Let me hear one more.
but it is not an alien word. It is a real word,
Oh man, now I'm really excited.
and I don't know if this is just I've just said this word wrong my whole life. It's one of those words that I don't
Now
have
I'm kind
any
of
reason
excited.
to say out loud ever, and nor do I hear other people say it out loud. So I'm like, is that how you say it? But anytime they're turning into bugs, a lot of times, in fact, a lot of the different characters in different books are talking about their antennae. Is that how you would say that word? Antennae?
Like multiple?
Yeah, I guess.
Uh, I don't actually know. I feel like that is
A
yeah,
N
I
T
don't know if
E N
I
N A E.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like I might pronounce it antennae or I might pronounce it antennae, but I actually feel like I would pronounce it both ways because I'm not sure which one's right, and I don't feel like learning.
I would
I have
definitely in my
heard
head.
antennae before. I think that might be right.
I get yeah, in my head, I would think antennae or even just like, I don't know, maybe just antenna and just like, but it's like I said, it's not something I really say out loud ever, but antennae just sounds so goofy to me.
Well, the
um,
beautiful thing about language is that if everybody says, "Well, that sounds goofy. We're just gonna say antennae from now on," then that's the pronunciation now, right? And all
yeah,
those other people are wrong.
but they sure say antennae so many times in this book, and every time I just was giggling a little bit. But maybe that's just right. I don't know. I'm not an entomologist. You know what I'm saying?
Not anymore. It's not right. Common usage, right?
Com-
Common meaning
yeah,
you.
yeah. I'm enough. One person's
Yeah.
enough.
Well, as long as it's the right person,
I see. I see. I see. Important people.
right?
But those were all my pronunciation issues. I don't. I think taxon. They kind of just said like. I don't remember if they said taxon or taxon really, but
Hmm.
it was fine because I say both too. um, yeah, it wasn't. There wasn't like Vicer 3 or anything.
No, nothing like that. Like I said, there it was pretty common for them to put accents on aliens. Like they'd have the aliens try to do, like in addition to, for Hork-Bajir's talking in addition to trying to say all the weird Hork-Bajir words, they would also be like putting on some kind of strange pseudo foreign accent, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't get to any chi books. Did they say Pimalites or something?
No, no, in the Drode book they say Pemalite.
I only listened to a little bit of Elemis Chronicles, but there's plenty of shit you could pronounce in there.
Yeah, I only listened to a snippet of that as well, and not enough to really, but there sure is.
Well,
Fucking
why don't we
trans.
yeah, why don't we talk about the Chronicles books? So here's what's interesting. McLeod Andrews is also Elfangor.
Hmm.
And I guess his voice is pretty different. He does like a different, deeper kind of voice for that book.
Yeah, and I like him better in that book, like a lot better as Elfangor than as Jake, as
Yeah.
Elfangor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree from the little bit that I listened to of it. But that's kind of interesting that he did pull double duty there. And then Hork-Bajir Chronicles, you have Bonnie Turpin as Aldrea and Mark Turetsky as Dakami.
Hmm.
And I thought this was an interesting choice that we'll
Hmm.
talk about. Natasha Sudek was Esplin.
Now, when you say it was an interesting choice, what do you mean by that?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. A
Hmm.
woman did the voice of Esplin, the Yeerk.
Right.
And I know that Yeerk's gender is kind of, ambiguous, but he's certainly very male coded throughout the series. And
Hmm.
I just never would have thought to give him a feminine voice. And I didn't listen to the whole Hork-Bajir Chronicles book. I only listened to like one Esplin chapter to see what it was like, but I didn't like it.
You didn't listen
I
to enough chapters, because if you'd listened to enough chapters, you would have heard her be all like, "You are mine. Your body is mine. I
oh
control
no.
everything." And you would have been like,
Okay.
"Holy shit. Oh my god, every York needs to be a woman from now on."
Well, that's how I feel when I listen to Visser. I mean, you know how I feel about
Right.
that.
No, that makes sense. No, I did think that was an interesting choice. I did not mind it. I thought it worked reasonably well, although like I don't know, because it feels somewhat intentional, right? This idea that like, hey, you think of Visser 3 is a guy, but he's technically genderless or whatever, except that it is a little undercut because in the book the other characters refer to Esplin as him.
Yeah.
So, it's like, all right, well, but like that's still there. It's just how it
Yeah.
is.
I mean, you could get into a whole thing of
Yeah,
voices and
like
gender, but you don't need
if you
to.
want to do my whole thing with where Yerk's genders are determined by their hosts, you could say like during that book, Esplin is fixated on Aldrea. So for that book, Esplin should be taking she because she wants
Mm,
to be Aldrea as
mm,
opposed to Alaran.
mm.
But I don't know.
I mean, I'll just say that I'll expose my own sexism. I don't care. It's been done before. I've exposed
Mhm.
myself many times. But again, this is just based on initial impressions, so maybe my opinion would change if I listened to more of it. But honestly, initially, I just felt like I the voice made Esplin sound too likable.
Hmm.
Like, and I guess to some extent that makes sense. I mean, you're in Esplin's POV, so this is sort of the first time you're a little bit more maybe seeing their side of things. But I don't. It just. I felt like I don't think I'm supposed to. And again, I guess maybe I just have an inherent bias where I'm like soft woman voice, me like. But I was like, oh, this person sounds like not like a horrible monster that I feel like they should sound like, or at
Yeah.
least not a horrible monster, but a little more like sinister.
Well, I do think that was supposed to be part of the point of the book, right? Is the idea that Esplin in this book, up until this point, Visser 3 is this sneering caricature of a bad guy, and then in this book we see that Visser 3 is in fact a person, and like, yeah, he might be kind of fucked up and do bad things, but like we can see the points where he's feeling cowardly or afraid or like I felt ambitious and I was excited about this and this was fun and da 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 da. And you can see more well rounded. So it's not necessarily bad to make you empathize with the character a little bit more in that way.
Yeah, I mean, this comes into you did listen to the whole thing. I haven't.
Hmm.
My memory of it is not the book as a whole is not as strong. So you're probably right overall, but yeah, it didn't quite work for me in the snippet. I don't know. Any other thoughts about either Aldrea or Dak, or even we could just jump to Suzanne Elise Freeman plays
Um,
Edris. Yeah.
Bonnie Turpin, who did Aldrea, also was a little bit school teachery for me.
Mm.
And I didn't like her Dak very much because here's the
Mm.
problem is she made her Dak sound very stupid. um, in a way that like is probably appropriate for Hork Bajir, but like by the end, I'm just like, man, Dak is like a fucking. He's giving these speeches, and he's over here like, these are my people who will die today. Be quiet, Aldrea. Be quiet, Andalite. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Stop doing that voice.
I would say, by contrast, Mark Turetsky's Dakami sounded like not stupid at all, I thought.
Yeah, which was very funny to jump between the two of them.
Yeah, a little bit. Uh, what's that called? Whiplash.
I thought you were going to say juxtaposition.
Well, I wasn't ready to come just yet.
Mm. Oh,
Okay.
here's a pronunciation. I feel like they commonly called her Aldrea instead of
Mm,
Aldrea.
yes. Yeah. I noticed that too. Bit weird.
Um, yeah, but they did say Dakami, which like
That's
that feels like that could be pronounced differently, but
right. uh,
Dakami.
the little I listened to of Suzanne Freeman as Edris and Scott Brick as Elemist, I thought sounded fine, but I didn't really go deep into it, so I don't have many thoughts.
Yeah, same. Although I will say, as far as Elemist goes, Scott Brick did have a very "I am the Elemist" voice, which is good when he's the
Mm.
Elemist. But like when I was listening to snippets of him back on Ket, I was like, he is supposed to be a loser kid. I don't. He's why is he still? I don't
Actually,
know.
yeah, I agree. Even in the actually, when he is the Elemist, I would say personally, I feel like Elemist is more Gandalfy in my head, where
Mm-hmm.
he's not. I mean, Gandalf, I guess, can get there, but generally more of a wispy sort of "I'm a mystical wizard" and less like, more Richard Harris Dumbledore and less Harry Potter Dumbledore. you
Right.
know,
I liked Scott McCloud as little old man Elemist at the end of Andalite Chronicles.
mm, that's good. I didn't listen to that, but that's good.
Yeah, where like Alan Fangor comes home to find a little old guy in his house, and he's like, "Oh, hello, Elfangor, Serenial Shamtol," and he's like, "Holy shit, what the fuck are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just a little old man who also happens to be the Elemist."
Like a little Yoda.
Yeah. Oh, you know who
This
else
mm,
McLeod Andrews did really well?
oh,
Who I mentioned before is Joe Bob Finestra.
did he
Um,
now?
who he does Joe Bob Finestra as he does him as a Southern gentleman with a long drawl, and he says like what and why. He's very good.
I do like that. I'm curious. I didn't listen to it, but now I sort of want to know how does Rachel do the Jeremy Jason McCall voice?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, that's the thing with this series. There are a lot of books that I'm just curious. Like another one that I kind of bookmarked was like I wanted to hear the attack just because even the Helmicrons, like I just wanted to
Yeah,
know
that's true.
because like we've read these books and obviously
Yeah.
all our listeners have read them and like they're out there. A lot of millennials have read them, but the idea that these professional adult actors in the year 2025 who probably didn't grow up reading them necessarily are now have to like sit there and think about them and highlight them and do voices and consider these books in the way that we had to almost. It's like how did they wrap their heads around and then their voices around these insane things that happen in these books? There is a curiosity in me that does kind of want to listen to more of these for that reason. I don't know if I will though. Probably won't. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're talking.
I'm talk.
Uh,
I just don't have anything to say to you.
fuck.
No. Hey, listen, I agree with you. I don't know. I don't have anything to add. What do you want from me?
It just felt like, how there's a conversation with two people and you go back and forth. It seemed like
Mm,
that was kind of your turn. Another thing that's interesting about this experience for me is I'm sure you considered being the thoughtful and well prepared host that you are of a podcast.
well, not this week.
I don't want to hear any of your excuses. Is that this was for me my first time in this instance re-listening, but really rereading these early books since we started the show.
That was occurring to me as I was re-listening to them.
And especially in light of the fact that we're about to check out the comics, I wanted to make sure that I did at least listen to the first 6 so that I would have them more fresh in my memory.
Hmm.
And that was kind of a cool experience. I mean, uh, so one thing I found is that we always would complain about all the exposition and the descriptions of them morphing and everything.
Hmm.
And in this case, you can't just skim right through those. You have to listen to them.
Yeah.
I guess you could. I guess you could just skip them. Um, and the exposition didn't really bother. In some ways, it bothered me less in audio form because it's just like, well, I just don't have to listen that close to that part, and then it'll be over. But then sometimes, if I was listening, I'd be like, I get it. You're falling. Just shut the fuck up and turn into a cockroach, okay? Let's move on.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of both ways because on the one hand, sometimes it didn't feel as bad because you just didn't listen. But then other times you're like, oh shit, I haven't been listening. What are they Oh, they're still fucking talking about boring shit. Jesus Christ. I stopped listening for a while. I came back. I expected something good by now. Still this?
Yeah, right. Still this.
Yeah.
So there was that to contend with. There was also a lot of things like, oh yeah, I forgot how much we had to talk about morphing outfits and shoes and
Hmm. Back to the good old days.
in some ways it was like it actually those first 7 or 8 books was like, wow, these really were like a great run of books.
Yeah, they really were. That like there were some really good books like right up front. They were and our rankings reflect that. Um I was wondering because I mean even for me, right? Like it, I haven't really reread these books since we started the podcast. So it's been like 2 years on these prints in particular and We just spent all this time focusing on the TV show. This did feel like a little bit of a detox. Like there was a part of me that was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. This is what the books were like," as opposed to in my head, I'm starting to get into like, yeah, Animorphs was kind of like that TV show. I remember all the lore from the books, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, no, 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 no. It was like this. Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a good thing. It's a good thing to get
So
your
yeah,
head
I
straight.
am interested. As you said, this is kind of your first time ever revisiting book one, two, three, and so on. Did you think anything different about them? Would you even be aware if it was different? I don't know.
I don't think my opinions of them really changed. I think if anything, I think some of the books where that I was less enthused with, I might actually enjoy more as audiobooks.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that's part of it is just the novelty of being like, oh, it's like a little radio play in my head. I can hear it now.
Hmm.
Or because like I can do something else while I'm listening to it. So, hearing Cassie talk about
Yeah.
skunks for 20 minutes isn't as bad as having to sit there and read it.
But it sounds like this is due to it being an audiobook and not due to it being like, ah, now that I'm revisiting it, having finished the series, I like it more type of thing.
Well, I think the other aspect of it is that I'm not then having to take notes and spend 2 hours discussing it. And that
Mm,
is different of just being like,
yes.
when I'm forced to sit there and go, oh, yeah, I guess this part did kind of suck. I guess I should get mad about it versus just casually like, oh, I mean, did that part kind of suck? I don't know. The book was fine. It's over. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah,
it's a lot more easy to just go with it.
it's the classic, that's the thing that I kept saying throughout, where I was like, I remembered book 6 being great, and then had to spend a week on it and realized 2/3 of it was boring.
Right. That one is even weirder. I'm
Yeah,
curious to read the comic because even in audio form, it's like it still feels like two different books.
yeah.
And you're listening to the first part for so long, but then the second part's like, this is great, and I'm still like, you know what? This book is great. Now that I listen to the second part, it's still an A. Oh, maybe I don't know what we ever gave it,
I
but
don't know if what we actually gave. I do think that that is kind of what we said was we were like, "Listen, the back half of it, great.
yeah, it's so good.
You gotta average it
You know what?
somehow."
That was another one just running around all over the place. But when I was not a big fan of Jake's Yerk voice in that book either. During the cat
Mhm.
when he Yerk's in his head, it was very cartoon. Ugh, it sounded like a Beast War villain. Like it was
Yeah.
really over the top.
I do think that that was a complaint that you had, though, when we read the book the first time, was that
Oh, really?
the first time we meet a Yeerk, he's so cartoonishly evil that you're just like, "Well, how am I ever supposed to feel bad for these guys? Like, fuck it,
Right.
they're all monsters."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Something else, that I'm realizing that I kind of noticed, but I'm seeing now confirmed, the first 8 books, the ones that we mainly listened to, were
Mhm.
based on the updated versions of them.
They
So,
were?
they according to Seropedia, and they're never wrong.
Weird. How did I not notice that?
I wish I
I
could think
guess I
of a
wasn't.
specific example, but I feel like there was at least one pop culture thing that I went, "Huh." I think they updated that or something.
Well, this is the difference between a real book and an audiobook, is that in the audiobook you just don't pay enough attention. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we've your original point is proven that if you listen to audiobooks, you're stupid.
Thank you. Something else I noticed because I was wondering like, are there any changes? I wish I could have marked it down. Maybe you'll remember too. But I swear there's one point where somebody says, "You're listening to like this." Like they use the word listening, whereas I feel confident in the book it would have been as you read this. They're like as you listen to this. Am I
Hmm.
crazy or did that happen? I swear I
I'm
heard
not
that.
sure. They could have changed that, but there was at least one point where they said like as small as the period on this
Yes.
page, which
And
I
I remember
recall. They did keep that, and
yes.
I recall
I
that. So.
I recalled that as well because I was wondering if they would keep that. Which is why I think maybe that was somehow but they wouldn't have changed that for the books, the first 8 books. I don't know. But I thought that was kind of weird because that is another thing because these books are so because they're written to ostensibly that they know you are reading them.
Mhm.
you have the opportunity to do that. It is maybe there's like a little more jarring to hear them say you're reading this when you aren't.
Yeah.
Or maybe people don't give a shit. They're like, it's an audiobook. I understand. It's not one to one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
So you actually I was thinking about this while I was listening to these. And you may like said this very briefly just now. Um I think I would have preferred, instead of listening to audiobooks, think I would have preferred listening to a radio play adaptation of Animorphs.
sure.
Like, as I was going through this, there were a lot of I spent a lot of time just thinking, like, yeah, imagine if these lines were each performed by the different actors, and like we brought in some sound effects, and like take this narration out and put in like one or two lines of expository dialogue or some sound effects that make it clearer as to what's happening. And I'm like, yeah, this could really rule, I think.
I do believe, don't take my word for this, but I think this at least partially exists from what little I gleaned looking online, that somebody did a podcast that might be called Audiomorphs where they did this.
Mm.
But I don't think they got through the whole series. But yeah, that would definitely be cool. I mean, I think, it makes sense to do this first and foremost. And
Hmm.
you want this as like, this is the
Yeah.
canon version of it. But that would be cool. I do think I don't know. I want to say like, oh, I could see myself listening to the rest of these. Part of me wants to, but also part of me knows. I mean, the last 2 weeks, normally I listen to different podcasts, and I am behind on all of them because I just listened to Animorphs audiobooks instead.
Right.
And I like want to go back to my podcast. But like what I still put on the Lord of the Rings one I mentioned earlier to fall asleep sometimes. And I did that for these too. I would sometimes put these on. There's an app on my phone, an audiobook app that has like a sleep timer and everything. And I thought that's a very nice. I enjoyed listening to the dulcet tones of Tobias soaring over the thermals as I drifted away. Right. Yeah, then I wake up in a panic. Oh god. But I don't know. Is there like? It sounds like you're leaning more on the negative side. I wondered if maybe in the future, if you were going to do a reread, if there's any part of you that might consider either entirely or partially doing audiobooks as a reread.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I just don't feel like I'm an audiobooks guy. Like I could see putting on one of these on like if I fucking actually go out, am I really going to ever visit my mom now that she moved to Kentucky and lives 15 hours away? I don't think so. Fuck her. But if I did,
Wow.
maybe I want to listen to the Andalite Chronicles again or something like that. One of the ones I like. I could see that, but like outside of that, no, I would just read it.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more. I lean a little closer to wanting to do it than you. I probably won't, but I'm like, yeah, like it is enjoyable. And well, here's the thing: I don't know that I will ever reread these books. Really, um, I don't know if that feels like a big statement to make, but it's more, the idea of like I rarely reread anything, in general. So
Mhm.
the idea of like it feels very intimidating to be like, am I going to sit down and read these 54 books or whatever? But then if I was like, maybe I'll just listen to a few of the audiobooks on and off, the ones that I remember that I like, that feels more approachable. I maybe I would think of doing that now and then if I felt like it.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think part of the problem also is that you're not the kind of guy to be all like, I should go back and revisit The Departure because I remember it was my favorite, right? Like, you're going to be like, well, if I'm going to go back, you got to read all of them, right? I think that's part of the problem here is that, like, how often am I doing a full series reread of Animorphs? Like, 5 years is pushing it, right? 10 years is probably closer at this point. Um, but like individual books, yeah, absolutely, I'd go back and just reread that one every once in a while because, like, hey, it's right here, and it's you bang them out in like an hour or two.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still thinking about maybe just listening to the Chronicles books
And
because
that is
I
the other
didn't.
thing also is it'll go way faster if you're not taking notes and if you don't have to stop for a
Mhm.
week in between. It's not like a years long intimidation thing. They go by pretty fast.
That is true. I mean, that is true. Also, I mean, the ebook copies that I read weren't always the best. So that is
Mhm.
kind of something that's an improvement with the audiobooks is I know at least that they're going to be accurate in terms of the
Well, you
words written.
could just fucking use the official Animorphs thing. You'd have to deal with a PDF though.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing that these exist. I'm glad they exist. I'm glad that they're out there. I think it's, like I said, bizarre that they are
Mhm.
standing alone right now. But and I also think it's just so strange that they came out so late. There's so many questions I have, and I also wonder, are they successful? I don't think there's sales numbers anywhere for this kind of thing. Like, does Scholastic? They must have considered them somewhat successful because otherwise, presumably, they wouldn't have done them all and then
Yeah, I
also
mean, I'm
done the Chronicles after.
I'm trying to think because like they did these, they started the graphic novels, and there was that idea for like an Animorphs movie or TV show or something, but then that got canceled, and the Animorphs graphic novels probably aren't going to get any more because I don't think like they're all out, and I don't think there's an order for any new ones. It feels almost like there was an attempt to make an Animorphs resurgence, right? Like there was a period right around maybe when our podcast was starting where everyone was like, "Oh
Zeitgeist.
shit, everybody loves Animorphs now." And then, now that our podcast is winding to a close, everyone's like, "Oh, we missed our window. Now nobody likes it anymore."
Yeah, that's
You know?
probably it. Yeah. But those books, they're out there. They're on Audible. They're on, if you have a library card, I'm pretty sure you can go on Hoopla or whatever and just like listen to them all for free that way.
Hoopla.
Yeah, Hoopla. Hoopla, whatever. Um, yeah, it's cool that they exist, I guess.
Yeah. Listen, I don't mind them. They're not really for me, I don't think.
And I wonder maybe it's a little bit more because you do have more memories of them from being a kid.
Hmm.
And for me, it's a little bit more of a blank page.
Yeah, that's true. Because as I said, like it bothers me more on the important passages. And that is the thing. Like when I'm listening to these audiobooks, there are specific bits where I'm like, I'm excited for them to read this part, and I don't think that's the case for you.
Right, right. I mean, maybe like a little, like every once in a while, I perk up for the obvious ones, like, oh
Hmm.
shit, the Elemist is here. you know.
Right, right, right. But that's just like parts of the story, and not like, oh, this particular passage or something.
I will say something. You know what? I'll say this in terms
Hmm.
of like my opinions changing. Maybe I don't know if it's changed that much, but I feel like I feel pretty good about Megamorphs 1. Like I think I liked it. I think
Yeah,
I wanted to give that book a higher score than you. I think
yeah.
it's a
You
B.
liked that book a lot more than me, so
And listening to it again, I was like, this book rules. It's awesome. I think it's great. So yeah. So there you go. There's that.
there you go.
Listeners, let us know what you think about Megamorphs 1 or the audiobooks in particular. Have you listened to them? Do you have any of the actors you prefer? Do you like audiobooks? Are you stupid because you listen to them? Can you even manage to write an email, or is the only thing you can do listen to words with your big dumb animal brain? Email us, theyeerkyboys@gmail.com. We'll respond to any and all of your thoughts, and then we'll berate you. And you can also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/theyeerkyboys. This week is a pretty cool one because we're going to be discussing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the first Narnia Chronicles book, which you probably could also listen to instead of reading if you so
Yeah,
chose.
that'll be my first time reading it. I heard it stars David.
'cause of the lion?
'Cause of the lion.
Okay. Great. Um, if you want, you can follow me online, jonathanestes.com or on Blue Sky at Quince, and I also write about video games at gonintendo.com. Check that out as well.
Yeah, same applies to me. Thanks every
All those things, all same thing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks everyone for listening. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about the graphic novels in which the kids turn into animals again on the Yerky Boys.